You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And as we always do on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And here is Samson's Take. I title it, Tame the Sinful Greed, End the Thievery. About a decade ago, I hosted a heated debate on this show about public office holders grabbing state lands, and for a pittance. It was turned into the usual ugly, mindless, nation-wrecking political equalization game. MPP officials who stood accused dug out documents pointing to NDC officials as having also benefited from a similar scheme, land-grabbing scheme. That's the low-life stupidity and arrant nonsense corrupt politicians and their misguided loyalists subject the good people of Ghana to daily on radio and TV. So how exactly is a competition in which of the duopoly has more thieving officials a solution to the rot they supervise, to impoverish Ghanaians? I prefer a commission of inquiry probing the generational greed extended to Accra's only green belt, the Chimota Forest Reserve. But Lands Minister Samuel Abu-Jinapur's disclosures and bold action gives as much hope as the OSP's promise to get to the bottom of the bizarre developments revealed in Sir John's will. But who doesn't know that stealing public funds to acquire property secretly in the name of relatives and third parties is in fact the standard operating manual for the generation of greedy politicians? One way to check the unbridled thievery, especially by party people who have hijacked our democracy, treating national assets as spoils of war, is an effective asset declaration cum sanctions for unexplained wealth. The lack of these checks is a tacit endorsement of the daylight robbery at the expense of suffering citizens. Our chiefs are quiet about Ejapa. You wonder why? Where's the Council of State? That useless piece of institution that's not accountable to Ghanaians. The Constitution commands that once appointed, one must declare his assets and liabilities in writing to the Auditor General before, not after, before taking office. How is it that many public officers, and as Daniel Domelevo discloses, including some judges, even of the highest court, fail to comply with this basic requirement until it becomes an issue? This is the case even under the weakest asset declaration regime, variously described as, quote, useless, a joke, or a toothless bulldog. This is because people deliver their list in a sealed envelope without any third-party verification, verifying to see if what they say is what it is. And there is no public disclosure to enable citizens blow the whistle when they have suspicions about fresh acquisitions of assets by a public officer. Notwithstanding the opaqueness of the current regime, some citizens detected and lodged complaints as SRAJ over contravention of the law. SRAJ does not seem to sanction defaulting office holders in a manner that deters the conduct. Recently, when Sraj established that the EC boss had not made the declaration before assuming office, it treated her with kid gloves because she did it in the course of the investigations. This week, Parliament woke up from slumber with pretenders in that house, including the majority leader, committing to asset declaration because of the revelation that the late Forestry Commission CEO, Sir John, breached Article 286. A number of times, 2015, 2017, 2018, you've heard me call out the MPs for refusing to pass the Sraj-sponsored Conduct of Public Officers Act, introduced in the House almost a decade ago. Their problem has been that the new bill requires some verification of the assets and liabilities that will be declared. On the issue of publication, they have argued, among others, that that will expose them to armed robbery. In June 2015, I presented a paper to leaders in the anti-corruption campaign front under the auspices of the Ghana Integrity Initiative and the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, and made a case for verification and publication. Let's demand it, because the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act 1998, Act 550, by which one submits a sealed envelope to the Auditor General, and only Sraj may open it only when there is a controversy and upon a lawful order to do so, is indeed a big joke, the former Auditor General asserts. This law, I repeat, without any equivocation, is the single most useless piece of legislation passed either by a lousy bundle of legislators or self-serving legislators seeking by law a right to conceal where they are envisaged by Chapter 24 of the Constitution to disclose their assets before assuming public office. Clearly, if what is declared is not verified and publicized, there is no need for the declaration at all. The current law, ironically, preserves a public officer's right to conceal where he ought to disclose. If there is no verification by the custodian, the Auditor General, and publication of such assets and liabilities, for example, in the Gazette, how will members of the public get to know what is declared in order to complain, if at all? The principles of transparency and accountability require nothing less than both verification and publication of the declared assets and liabilities of people who want to go into public office, if the intended mischief the law seeks to cure is to be achieved. A review of the regime under the Conduct of Public Officers Act without a mandatory requirement for verification and publication will mark such a sad retrogression. You know why? Because such declarations were gazetted, as in published, even under the military PNDC regime. Is this a democracy? The Constitution Review Commission summarized the collective will of Ghanaians in desiring this. And it found that, quote, though the Constitution attempts to curb the menace of corruption through the asset declaration regime, the absence of compulsion and the lack of transparency in the exercise defeats the very purpose of the regime, end quote. The 2015 bill became the 2018 bill and now has been dusted and labeled 2022 bill. Stop deceiving Ghanaians. They are getting tired of you, and you will not be able to contain their anger as you continue to impoverish them in pretending to be working. It must not be passed if the Auditor General will not be allowed to independently verify the declarations, and if they will not be publicized. There must be sustained advocacy to scrap this regime for a compulsory and transparent one with clear rules for seizing and punishing unexplained wealth. Trace to wives, children, friends, nephews, and so on. This is my take. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters that we have tabled for discussion this morning. And as always,